for those of you who don't know, I will be running Kaisa in this case at the tournament, and being able to do so will be interesting to see. I mean, it's going to be, the mirror match are going to be very normal to have going for us, and it's going to be fun to see what's going on here with any of that. We do see a lot of Master Yi's, we do see a lot of Annies as well, so I mean, it's going to be a show for sure.
Now, of course, my one big worry is last night a lot of us were asking around with no idea if there was supposed to be deck lists or things of that nature, and that's going to be interesting to see how many people actually are not going to be bringing a deck list or knowing that they need one. And luckily, they did have a printout for us to be able to fill out our own deck lists, which are going to be really helpful. But we'll see how all of that actually ends up going. I still kind of fear that a lot of people are going to be showing up and being like, oh, by the way, before you register, here's a deck list. So we'll see how that goes. But that could make this a lot easier for us to sign up since we've already filled out the deck list. Now, for those of you who are a little unfamiliar on how I go to my locals and everything, I actually use a ukulele case. The biggest reason why that is it actually ends up fitting everything that you need very conveniently. So I got my trades here, my Darius hook deck that I'm not playing, playmat, awesome, and then also the deck box and everything. And so this is how everything is packed up and meant to go. Also, just in case I didn't say anything, I brought extra sleeves just in case for the duration of the tournament, especially just with getting deck checked and things of that nature. There's always a possibility. So always bring extra sleeves just in case. Cornering or anything like that could possibly get you DQ'd or whatnot. Who knows? But just rather be safe than sorry. So we will see how that ends up going. How you feeling?
Oh, good.
Oh, good. Nice. Okay. Well, we'll find some foods and guests, and we'll see what goes on from there. Well, we went down to the casino floor, and I forgot the deck list. Even said I wasn't going to forget the deck list. I forgot it. But this is a great way for my wife to get her steps in for the day. So you're welcome.
All right, so we are before round number 1. So it's going to be interesting to see how all of that ends up going. Little nervous. Whoop. Little nervous as I almost dropped the camera. It's going to be interesting to see how all of this ends up unraveling for us. Again, we're just here to have fun more than anything. Would it be nice to get into Top Cut and win some prize money? Definitely. But especially just with how I wish I ran more games with Kaisa. That's the hard part. And I was ending up going ahead and running a bunch of different stuff all over the place. I really wanted to play Darius Hook to see how that would end up going for us. Wasn't able to play test against any Kaisa, so did not feel comfortable about that at all. And so after that, it was like, well, Kaisa's the second most one that I've played games with. We'll see how it ends up going. But again, we're here for a good time. We're here to have fun, and we're just here to experience, I mean, all of this. So just really cool to be a part of one of the first big tournaments here for Riftbound. And let's have some fun. So round 1 ended up actually going against someone that I know. None other than Prismaticism. Yeah, out of all the odds in that, ended up out of 400 people getting paired with the one guy that I know and the one guy that fears me most in this game. For those of you who don't know, Prismaticism is probably one of the best online players in the game for Riftbound. Has won multiple tournaments online and alike and done such a good job at being able to do so. And so when I saw that he was also piloting Teemo, he can play me like a fiddle at that point, and rightfully so, he did. Now on top of that, he did draw extremely well with his game, being able to do that. And so I was just absolutely blown away by what he was able to get out on board. And yeah, so let's go ahead and see what that recap was like. But, you know, ended up going against a Teemo, so something that you would think would be normally a little bit more favorable in that case, but unfortunately ended up just falling a little bit short in that regard, and wasn't able to find a lot of options. I lost the die roll, rolling a 5 to a 9 in that case. That kind of sucks. That's how it is. Biggest thing after that as well was I was able to kind of get a slow start in game one. I was able to at least get a Poro out with deflect, which is kind of helpful-ish. It's at least a 2-drop. But the biggest thing was he ended up actually getting 2 Ember Monks down on turn 2, turn 3 as well, and then even being able to hide cards on top of that. And so immediately just felt kind of landlocked at that point, trying to figure out the best way to get over that. And that was one of the harder things about that game. And ended up having to, spend a ton of resources on being able to do so. So that really sucked. And then game 2, I started with all spells in hand, including an Acathian Rain and a Thousand Tail Watcher. So not what you would want. Ended up passing turn 1, turn 2. Turn 3, he moved his Yordle. I was able to go ahead and at least deal 3 damage with a Hex Tech Ray, stop that. After that, he moved in his Monk, and I used a Void Seeker to take care of that. But again, it was just way too slow. Wasn't able to get any, small units out onto the field. And then he ended up getting a Mundo out at 16. I tried to swing in with double Smokescreen and a Darius, and just was unfortunately able to have also the Stupefies in hand on top of that to make Mundo, just go and be too high at that point. And so, yeah, it really sucks to start out at, with a loss, but we're here for a long time and going to play as many rounds as we can get and then see what ends up happening. All right, so here we are, one of my good friends from Utah, and we just finished our round 1. We'll see how it's going. And you said what? You saw an interesting judge ruling that was going on here as well.
Yeah, so it was a Darius moving in, and he was trying to use Flash to trigger the second played card so he could get his +2. And then the opponent played a Mystic Reversal to try to counter the Flash so that the Darius didn't get the +2. And the judges came and ruled that it still counted as a played card when that's not the case. It's not supposed to be a played card, right? Because it didn't resolve the Flash because he took control of it with Mystic Reversal. So then what happened is they appealed it. The head judge came over, and then he also agreed with the first judge, saying that it still counted as playing the card for the Darius. But all of the players sitting around were like, hang on, nobody thought that was right. So they brought him back over, and then everybody was scrolling through the rules, and they found, like, okay, this is it. It doesn't count a spell as played until it resolves. So because it didn't resolve as the first player for the Darius, then he didn't get the +2. He lost the base, and he might have lost the match now.
We're still waiting.
We're still waiting. Yeah, they're still playing.
That's insane. And again,
wild.
That's how it is with new games sometimes. Yeah. They just came out with level 1 of the judging system, and already in round 1 here in Vegas, that's what we end up happening. So we'll see what the rest of the day has in store for us.
Oh yeah, it'll be good. It'll be a good day.
Good day. Definitely. Well, we ended up going 0-2, unfortunately. So not a great start for us, but that's just how it is. Ended up going actually round 2 against Darius Hook. Did not see that coming. And that was the biggest thing is, yeah, and really cool guy, really awesome to be able to go against him. But the biggest thing was game 1, he had the God Hand, plain and simple. Started with a floated rune going first, and then ended up playing a seal, and then going with 3 to play out with using Darius's Legion ability to add an additional rune, and then ended up going and playing a Vanguard Captain. So getting 2 tokens out on the board, a 3 might unit on top of that as well, being able to use the seal to be able to get the recycle going and things of that nature. And that was a great start. And then the following turn, they got Hook going and immediately started ramping up at that point and just was going absolutely crazy. Ended up seeing all 3 Dravens as well in game 1. And so he would continue to still make units out onto the board and get things going. But then after that, would just keep Dravens back into base, Falling Star wasn't enough to kill them. They were immediately at 7 at that point, 8, 9. They would keep going on that, and that was so tough for us to be able to go against at that point. Now, game 2, I felt a little bit better. I didn't necessarily bring a side for that, which is fine. I didn't necessarily feel like that was a bad matchup for me. Guess I'm wrong. And ended up being moving into Sprite Mothers just for some speed and be able to deal with some of the threats that might be out on board a little bit easier. And then also the 5 Recycle 2 to be able to destroy all gear. I only run one of those. And I was like, well, I'm already down a game. If I go ahead and do that then. And sure enough, he ended up being able to go wide again pretty quickly. Was able to also find Vayne as well and take out a lot of things, and I was just unable to keep up. No Icathian Reigns, no Falling Star game 2, and again, he was able to see the Draven, and then even when I started to hold, he was able to go ahead and hook into a Vayne as well to get control of battlefields, and just was doing so good at being able to maintain board presence while also dealing with my threats. And Kai'Sa was moving too slow, surprisingly. So didn't necessarily see that coming. But, yeah, round 2. So definitely little, disheartened by that, little tilted, not going to lie. Did not imagine coming to this and going 0-2. I was hoping at least 1-1. But still, we're going to shake it off the best that we can. We're going to do our best to go into the next round, continue to just have fun and play the game that we love. And see what ends up happening. The goal is still to go ahead and break even, which is still possible, but we'll see what happens. So we actually ended up not going against Kai'Sa again for round number 3. So really interesting to see how all of that is actually working for us. It's getting a little weird. We ended up actually going against Jinx and getting our first win. It was really interesting. Game 1, we just found all 3 of our Falling Stars, and naturally that was able to really clear up the board for us and deal with anything. The most interesting thing about my opponent, of course, was that he was playing the Rocket build, and so it is going to go ahead, and anytime you conquer, you're able to discard to add it back to hand, which is really good. And he found the Rocket both games, and so he was sniping out the Kai'Sa. He killed twice both games. He killed Darius's both games. It's also really weird. I have played the entire tournament and have yet to play a Thousand Tail Watcher. Just have not had that happen yet. Really weird situation for that. And also not seeing a Kai'Sa, so we'll see what ends up happening. All right, so round 4 is over and done with. And with that, unfortunately, we got a loss, but we finally went against Kai'Sa. Rolled really bad. We ended up rolling a 3 to an 11. So not necessarily the best situation to start with Kai'Sa. That's how it happens. But biggest thing, I think, is I'm just not necessarily ready for this type of tournament. I've played way too many different kinds of decks because I definitely wanted to play more fun things, just get to know the decks as a whole instead of actually fixating on just playing Kai'Sa for all time, for the 3 weeks that this game has been out. I also would want to, I think a big issue too is I don't necessarily have a playtesting group. And the majority of my games have been on stream on TCG Arena. Not to necessarily, throw shade on anything like that, but the biggest thing is a lot of people on there are brand new players that I've had to explain things to them more often than not on how things actually work. So that's going to be the hardest part. I think the biggest thing is find a playtest group. Yes, I am still going to go ahead and definitely, keep up the content with playing a bunch of different decks and things of that nature. But then when it really comes time to playing competitively, I just need that playtesting group to refine and tighten the game, refine the deck and things of that nature. And so definitely a really good learning experience. That's, I think, also has been the biggest thing with our local scene as well. is that one of the biggest things is we are all brand new players, and there are not a lot of meta decks at the local scene. Even one of my friends who's earlier here in the video, he ended up bringing Leona in this case, you know, and got 0-3 in that case and just ended up leaving. And so kind of a tough situation there for him as well. But like that's kind of been the majority of our local scene. You know, again, not to throw shade on them or anything, but the biggest thing is like I was playing Darius Hook versus a Kaisa, and the guy's like, look, I'm sorry, I just don't necessarily know how to play. Or, you know, I've played one game with Kaisa so far, you know, or this guy that has Yasuo, and he's like, this is just the cards that I ended up pulling. I threw a deck together. Things like that. And unfortunately, you know, I wasn't able to build up my game nearly as much as I wanted to. And that's made a really tough impact for coming to a big tournament like this. So I think biggest thing is, yeah, I just need to find that playtesting group, that competitive group, to really grind out some games and see what I can do. And biggest thing is, again, preparing for Vegas and just getting things moving. So at this point, it is what it is. Does it suck that we are only at this point? Yes. You know, woke up, didn't think I would be 1-3. That's perfectly fine. But yeah, we'll keep going at it. There's still a good chance that we are going to be able to go ahead and still break even and keep that going. And definitely a lot to learn and a great learning experience here as well. So, you know, let's continue to bounce back. And, you know, when we do come back here in February for the regional, we're going to come back stronger and ready to take this game, you know, and definitely, you know, try to do better there. But that's going to be the biggest thing. So let's continue, you know, not be tilted by any of this and just have fun. All right, so we got another win, surprisingly, going against a Aurora Volley Bear. So that was actually a really interesting matchup for us to try to encounter. Game one, luckily, we were able to just go very fast. He wasn't able to get the Auroras out early on, at least until the mid-game. So turn one, we were able to get out a Lecturing Yordle in that case, and then we were immediately able to go to Kaisa. Missed the, or, you know, instead of playing the Auroras, didn't have it in hand just yet, decided to play a Magma Worm, so things at least came in ready. We ended up double stupefying and then doing a falling start at that point to be able to get that, which was fun play. And drawing 2 cards doesn't hurt at all with that either. After that, of course, we did end up trying to just continue to maintain momentum and things of that nature. Luckily, we had Darius and whatnot to deal with the threats coming into board, and we kept pulling out, waiting for, you know, to avoid Dead Bloom Predators and things of that nature to get things going. But no, it went really well for us. And then game 2, we cited an unchecked power. He was able to then go ahead and sabotage one, but we went ahead and was able to find the other one shortly after that. And when everything was stacked, we were able to then go ahead and unchecked power. It took us a turn, of course, but after that, I think he had one, maybe 2. We only got to 1, but I think he had maybe 2 units left in the deck at that point. So we had some great answers to be able to deal with what was out there. But yeah, we're 2-3 right now, going into round 6. So the dream is still alive to try to end in the positive. So we'll see if we are able to do that. All right, so we hit the goal. We were able to go 3-3 all in all, which was really lucky. You know, definitely starting, you know, X-2, you know, or that doesn't necessarily feel great at all. That's not what you definitely want to start as. That's a worst case scenario. I do feel like a lot of it also was nerves. This is the first time since 2016 that I've been in literally like this big of a tournament scene. And that changes a lot of things too, unfortunately. And that definitely makes it a lot more difficult to try to deal, you know, when you're in that first round and that first round nerves. You can find yourself second guessing yourself and things of that nature and whatnot. And you know, I am finally feeling a lot more comfortable, I've also noticed, which is, you know, a good thing for sure. We ended up going against Set in this round, so really interesting to be able to see how that ended up going. Set is so difficult to have to deal with. That's the hardest part. His legend ability is just so good that you're going to be finding yourself, especially as a Kaisa player, trying to figure out how to best take care of your opponent here. And that's tough, unfortunately. And so with that, I ended up, after taking out the Set in game 2, he, of course, brought it back to base, recalled it to base with the legend ability. And after that, I ended up using a full Icathian Rain just on the Set play, or just on the Set itself, to just get it out of there. My opponent only had 2 cards in hand at that point. So I did feel like, yes, it was a very costly but justifiably, Icathian Rain in that case. And so that was lucky. Felt good there. And that was the biggest thing, was just maintaining removal, and especially after the legend ability had been utilized and the rune had been recycled, that was especially when the Falling Stars would come in and clean up whatever was left at that point. Really good player, really fun guy to be able to talk to. It definitely is hard to be at that point of the game and to be that low. That's just how it is sometimes, but it's really cool to be able to see how all of this comes about with all of this. And so we are 3-3. It is like 4:17. I think I am going to play one more round to see how it's going to go. And then we'll end up dropping for the rest of the night, and I'll go spend some time with my wife. So let's see how it goes. All right. So definitely learned a lot there. We aren't doing our 7th round anymore. Just decided to go ahead and spend some time with the wife. It's already been a long day, so we're going to be going ahead and relaxing instead. So really fun, really great event. Loved everyone that I was able to meet. Definitely have a lot to learn for sure. So yeah, all in all, I think I need to get the nerves out of the way. I think that's going to be the biggest thing. And playtest. Just do our best to go ahead and, play against highly competitive people, get the rust off, get the lines familiarized, and just do everything that we can to come back even stronger. All right, guys, we are back in the hotel room with the wife. She's doing good. Now, she had a nice relaxing day. It's a spa day for her while I compete in card games. Make that make sense. Anyway, that's why she really wants to come. She claims she's being supportive. She really is. But then she has a day to herself in a luxurious casino hotel. It's every woman's dream. No husband around. So anyway, with that being said, we know. Anyway, there was a couple of things that were good and bad about the tournament and everything. First off, I love how everyone in particular just was wanting to play the game. There weren't necessarily too many instances of like rule sharking or, as excessive as it could be. There was one guy that literally was calling a judge over because one of his opponents was using the same color runes or rune sleeves as his main deck. And that was something that he didn't necessarily like or care for, so he called him out on that. And otherwise, there was a lot of misplays and things of that nature. People still, of course, learning this game. That's perfectly normal. Of course, this game is fairly complicated. They did tout when they first made this game saying that it was a very simple game. When Dave first announced the game, he was like, hey, look, you can learn this game in 5 minutes flat. And yeah, you can. But then the little pamphlet that you gave us, that has more pictures than words, then goes ahead and just doesn't answer anything. Especially showdowns are the biggest things that make it very complicated. There was an instance, and I was talking to Blevins and a couple others after my round 3 versus Set. And there was an instance, of course, I was already 2-3 at this point, so I wasn't going to necessarily or try to escalate it further on this. But with Set's ability, of course, you are allowed to go ahead and spend, of course, one of your buffs to when a unit is going to die and send it back to base. Now, the terming for that specifically with Set is going to be recall. Now, with that,
I was going to go ahead, and they had a buff set in a battlefield. I was going to go ahead and smoke screen and -4 to bring it down to 1. Then what I was going to do was go ahead and do Falling Star to deal that damage. Now, the damage to kill it the first time would still, of course, go through, and it would move it back to base, being able to spend the buff and whatnot. But then after that, with the excess damage and still the -4, it would still die, of course. Now, I wasn't too sure about that. I had checked with a couple of people all in all, but that was like a month ago when something like that happened with Hourglass, and like going against a Lee Sin for that example. And so it was like an obscure thought, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure this works. Called the judge over, and he's like, nope, because of recall, it actually removes removes all the damage and everything because it's getting recalled to base. If it just moved back to base, then of course it wouldn't work. And I'm like, I'm not sure that's how it works, my dude. But of course, very respectful with all of that. And I'm like, okay, is it okay if I go ahead and get an appeal on that just to double check? They called the other judge over in this case as well, and he found the same ruling in that case, that because it is a recall, there are no damages that end up happening. So, and I'm like, okay, cool. Now, if I was 4-1 at this point, or 5-0, that would be something that I would be a little bit more particular about or worried about in that case. But because it wasn't, and I already had kind of the upper hand, he had 2 cards in hand at that point. I think something like that. No, that was game 2 with the Cathian Rain. He didn't necessarily, I already had an advantage kind of thing. And I felt like I already had the game in hand. That was just going to secure it for game 1 and whatnot. And so, yeah, that was tough to see. Luckily, it didn't end up actually hurting us really. And so that was kind of the biggest thing, though. There was, and that's kind of hard when there's a brand new game that is out. It can be very hard to judge correctly, especially a game as complicated as Riftbound. Still, though, absolutely loved all the people that I was able to meet. It was so cool. People just were wanting to learn the game, just wanting to experience the game at a high level and be a part of this. And so really great job. Also, Turn 'em Sideways is absolutely killing it with the online streaming, and the broadcasts that they've been able to do have been just absolutely great. Shot some footage with Blevins yesterday, which went incredibly well and was a super fun and exciting game. Spoiler, I still am really mad at myself. I haven't played too many games of Darius Hook. And, I had a seal out, and I still ended up going ahead and recycling a rune to hide a card at the very beginning of the game. That felt next level moves right there, But no, it was just a really great experience. A lot of people that came down from Utah in our local gaming scene and whatnot, and just met a lot of really cool people. So super excited to see what else is going to be coming. And yeah, so also Becca, little surprise tonight. I got us a reservation at that Chinese place that looks really cool. So we're eating dinner at 7:30. Got us a reservation. So look forward to that. Anyway, guys, so that is pretty much going to be it. All in all, very much loved how all of this ended up going. Really great experience. Definitely eye-opening on the things that I need to do in order to get better at the game and just refine some things. It is definitely a mental game, and it can be so easy to get tilted. I think the biggest thing is because I went against Prismaticism in game 1. I mean, come on. That's just a slap in the face right there with that. I mean, seriously, just absolutely so funny that out of 400 and some odd people, I get paired up with Prismaticism. But just, super nice guy, really good with how he was able to play. And he's done amazing in this tournament so far. I'm curious to see what place he ends up finishing. But man, Riftbound's here. It is here to stay. Again, this is all going to depend on, it's not going to necessarily hurt the player base necessarily all in all, but I really hope they are able to knock Wave 2 out of the park with this. That is going to be the biggest thing. And that Set 2 is going to be able to be launched, because Riftbound is something special here. That's going to be the biggest thing. And if they can continue to ramp up production and to make sure that the people who want to play are able to do so, then this game is going to be absolutely huge. We have Houston. Not going to Houston, unfortunately. I wish we were going to Orlando. Just can't afford it right now. But we are going to be going back to Vegas here, and we are going to be making a much better run. Going to be training hard on that. I've already talked with Tara, who was in a video already. Going to be play testing with him and his group as well, so that we can really refine the play styles and mistakes that I was making, the lines that I can better master those as well. And hopefully we can come back here in February and have a much better showing. Really grateful for everyone. I've been streaming with a lot of people over the last month or so, and just had an absolute blast doing so. And then to be able to meet them in person is just absolutely surreal, and just have made some really great friends. So grateful for that. Love how card games are able to bring people together. And yeah, just could not be happier. So we're going to hang out for the rest of the night and see what ends up happening. But until next time, guys, have a good one.